The Aokigahara forest was unlike any place I had encountered throughout my years as a ranger. The moment I crossed the threshold into this hauntingly beautiful expanse, an eerie silence enveloped me, wrapping around my shoulders like a heavy cloak. The usual sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves were conspicuously absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness that seemed to press against my ears. I should have never come here, I muttered under my breath, the words slipping out as a warning to myself. The dense trees towered overhead, their gnarled branches twisting together like fingers intertwined in a silent prayer. Sunlight struggled to pierce through the thick canopy, casting the forest floor in a dim twilight. Moss carpeted the ground, muffling my footsteps, and the air was rich with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. There was a tangible weight to the atmosphere, a heaviness that made it hard to breathe. I could feel the forest watching me as if it were alive, aware of my presence and judging my every move. I had been a forest ranger for over a decade, trained to navigate the wilderness and protect its inhabitants. Yet, this assignment felt different from the start. Transferred here without explanation, I had tried to embrace the change, hoping to find beauty within the shadows. But as I ventured deeper into Aokigahara, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had walked into a realm that was not meant for me, a place steeped in tragedy and loss. The local townsfolk had warned me about this forest. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices trembling with fear. It's a place where spirits linger, they said, eyes wide with concern. Many who enter do not return. At first, I had dismissed their warnings as mere superstition, tales spun from the threads of fear and folklore. Yet, as I stood in the heart of the forest, I began to question my skepticism. The air felt thick with unspoken stories, and I could almost hear the echoes of those who had come before me, their whispers woven into the very fabric of the trees. As I moved further along the narrow path, I caught sight of something glimmering in the underbrush. Curiosity piqued. I approached cautiously, kneeling to examine the object. It was a small trinket, a silver locket, tarnished and worn. My heart sank as I wondered whose it might be and what fate had befallen its owner. The forest was known for its dark history, a site where many had come seeking solace, but found only despair. The locket felt like a reminder of that sorrow, a token left behind by someone who had lost their way. The stories of Aokigahara were not just tales of lost hikers. They were tales of those who sought refuge from their pain, only to become trapped in the forest's embrace. Suicides were tragically common here, and the forest had earned a reputation as a place of finality for those burdened by their struggles. I had read the reports, seen the statistics, but standing there, holding the locket in my hand, made the reality all too palpable. This forest was a graveyard of dreams, a monument to the lost and forgotten. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead as if urging me to leave. I stood, heart pounding, and looked around, feeling an unsettling presence lingering just beyond my sight. It was as if the trees were whispering secrets to one another, sharing tales of despair that echoed through the branches. I took a step back, suddenly aware of how isolated I was. Alone in this vast wilderness, the reality of my situation began to sink in. I was not just a ranger. I was a trespasser in a realm that held its own rules, its own darkness. Stay focused, I told myself, shaking off the unease that threatened to consume me. I had a job to do, a duty to uphold. I needed to survey the area, check for any signs of disturbances, and ensure that visitors remained safe. But as I ventured deeper into the forest, the line between duty and fear began to blur. The shadows lengthened, and the air grew colder, wrapping around me like a shroud. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the silence, a soft, mournful whisper that seemed to drift through the trees. I froze, straining to hear. Was it the wind playing tricks on me, or was there something more? My heart raced as I scanned the surroundings, searching for the source of the sound. It was just my imagination, I told myself. But deep down, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was not alone. With each step I took, the forest seemed to shift and change, its very essence morphing into something more sinister. Yet, as I stood in the heart of the forest, I began to question my skepticism. The air felt thick with unspoken stories, and I could almost hear the echoes of those who had come before me, their whispers woven into the very fabric of the trees. As I moved further along the narrow path, I caught sight of something glimmering in the underbrush. Curiosity piqued, I approached cautiously, kneeling to examine the object. It was a small trinket, a silver locket, tarnished and worn. In that moment, I realized that this forest held more than just trees and wildlife. It was a repository of pain, a place where the past and present intertwined in a haunting dance. The stories would not let me go. I was drawn into the web of despair that lingered within these woods, and I knew that I had to confront whatever lay ahead. For better or worse, I had entered Aokigara, and there was no turning back. As I stood at the edge of a small clearing, gazing into the forest's depths, I couldn't shake the feeling that Aokigara was more than just a collection of trees. It was a living entity, pulsing with the weight of its history. The legends that surrounded this forest were not mere fairy tales. They were woven from the fabric of human experience, stories of loss, desperation, and the relentless search for solace. I took a deep breath, allowing the damp, earthy scent to fill my lungs. In the distance, I could hear the faint trickle of a stream, its sound barely breaking the suffocating silence that enveloped the forest. Memories of the locals' warnings echoed in my mind, their faces etched with concern. I had come to learn that many of them had personal connections to the forest, friends or family, who had vanished into its depths, never to return. Their stories were marked by grief and regret, and I felt a growing sense of responsibility to honor those lost souls. As I ventured deeper into the woods, I began to reflect on my own life. I was a native ranger, proud of my heritage and my connection to the land. My family had lived in this region for generations, and I had been raised with a deep respect for nature. I had always believed in the importance of preserving the wilderness, but now, standing in the heart of Aokigara, I realized that the forest held secrets I had never anticipated, secrets that were intertwined with the very essence of who I was. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced between the trees. I stumbled upon a small, weathered cabin, half hidden by vines and foliage. It looked abandoned, but something about it called to me. As I approached, I noticed the carvings etched into the wood, names, dates, and symbols that seemed to tell a story of their own. I traced my fingers over the rough surface, feeling the history that lay embedded in the cabin's walls. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me, and I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was an older man, his face weathered by time and experience. His eyes held a deep sadness, and I could see the weight of the forest reflected in them. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. I shook my head, though I felt a flicker of uncertainty. "No, just exploring." He stepped closer, glancing around as if wary of the trees themselves. "This forest has a way of ensnaring those who wander too far. It can be beautiful, but it can also be unforgiving." I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. "I've heard the stories about Aokigara, about the people who come here and never leave." The old man's expression darkened, and he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There are spirits here, you know, souls that have been lost to the forest's embrace. They wander these woods, searching for peace, and sometimes they reach out to those who enter." His words sent a shiver through me, and I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder. "Do you believe in them?" "I do," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "I've seen things that can't be explained, shadows that move without a body, whispers that echo when there's no one around. This forest is alive with the memories of those who sought refuge here and found only despair. As he spoke, I felt the weight of his sorrow pressing against me. It was clear that he carried his own burdens, perhaps tied to the stories he had witnessed over the years. "What brings you to Aokigara?" he asked, his tone shifting to one of curiosity. "I was transferred here," I admitted, feeling a sense of vulnerability. "I wanted to connect with the land and the people, to learn more about my heritage. But now," my voice trailed off, and I gestured toward the trees. "Now it feels like there's something darker at play." The old man nodded slowly, his eyes searching mine. "You're not the first ranger to feel that way." I stumbled upon a small, weathered cabin, half hidden by vines and foliage. It looked abandoned, but something about it called to me. As I approached, I noticed the carvings etched into the wood, names, dates, and symbols that seemed to tell a story of their own. I traced my fingers over the rough surface, feeling the history that lay embedded in the cabin's walls. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me, and I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ethereal glow over the clearing, I felt a sense of purpose awaken within me. I was not just a ranger. I was a guardian of stories, a bridge between the past and the present. I had a duty to honor the memories of those who had come before me, to listen to the whispers of the forest, and to protect its sanctity. The old man gave me a nod of approval before stepping back into the shadows, his figure becoming one with the trees. "Remember," he called out softly, "the forest knows all. It will reveal itself to those who seek the truth." As darkness settled over Aokigara, I stood alone in the clearing, acutely aware of the weight of the stories around me. Each rustle of leaves, each distant echo, felt laden with significance. I could no longer ignore the forest's call. I was part of its narrative now, entwined with the souls that had wandered its depths with renewed determination. I turned back toward the path, ready to continue my exploration. This forest was a labyrinth of secrets, and I was determined to uncover them. I would confront the darkness, honor the lost, and embrace the stories that awaited me in the shadows of Aokigahara. As I delved deeper into the heart of Aokigara, the forest began to reveal its darker side. The shadows grew thicker, and the air felt charged with an unsettling energy. My thoughts were still occupied by the old man's warnings and the stories of lost souls that lingered in the trees. The forest seemed to pulse around me, alive with whispers that danced just beyond my comprehension. I pressed on, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread, determined to uncover the truth hidden within the depths of this enigmatic place. A few hours into my trek, I stumbled upon a narrow path, overgrown with weeds and bordered by twisted roots. The path beckoned, drawing me in with an almost magnetic pull. I hesitated for a moment, recalling the old man's words about the forest ensnaring those who wandered too far. But my resolve hardened. I couldn't turn back now. I had to know what lay ahead. As I walked, the forest thickened around me, the trees closing in like sentinels. The light began to fade, creating a surreal twilight that felt both enchanting and foreboding. I noticed strange markings on the trees, symbols carved into the bark, some resembling ancient runes, others looking like desperate scrawls. Each one seemed to tell a story, a plea for help or a message left behind by those who had come before. Suddenly, a rustling noise startled me, and I whipped around, my heart racing. A figure darted between the trees, disappearing into the underbrush before I could make out any details. My instincts kicked in, and I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence hung in the air, thick and oppressive. I felt a chill sweep over me, and my skin prickled with unease. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, but the feeling of being watched was inescapable. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs seemed amplified, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. waiting for something to happen. Pushing forward, I ventured deeper into the woods, my senses heightened. The path twisted and turned, leading me to a small clearing where the remnants of a campfire lay smoldering, surrounded by discarded belongings, tattered clothing, a backpack, and an old, rusted flashlight. My stomach dropped as I surveyed the scene. It was clear that someone had been here recently, but there was no sign of them now. I knelt beside the fire, examining the ashes. They were still warm, and a sense of urgency washed over me. "Where did you go?" I murmured, feeling an overwhelming need to find the person responsible for the abandoned camp. I reached for the backpack, my fingers brushing against its frayed edges. Inside, I found a journal, its pages filled with frantic scrawls and sketches of the forest. The last entry sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I can hear them whispering. They're calling my name. I have to go deeper. I can't resist. A cold shiver ran down my spine, and I closed the journal, my thoughts racing. Whoever had been here was in trouble, and it was up to me to find them. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, igniting a fierce determination within. I had entered this forest seeking answers, but now I felt a compelling need to rescue someone trapped within its grasp. With the journal clutched tightly in my hand, I made my way back to the path, my heart pounding. The whispers seemed louder now, swirling around me like a sinister breeze. "Keep going," they seemed to say, urging me onward. I couldn't tell if they were real or merely figments of my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was deliberately guiding me. As I followed the path, I began to notice more signs of struggle, broken branches, disturbed foliage, and faint footprints leading deeper into the woods. Each clue heightened my sense of urgency, propelling me forward as I called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" The forest responded only with silence, but I pressed on, driven by an unyielding resolve. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a guardian, tasked with uncovering the truth and bringing someone back from the brink of despair. After what felt like hours of navigating the dense undergrowth, I stumbled upon a larger clearing. In the center stood an ancient tree, its trunk thick and gnarled, surrounded by a circle of stones. The air felt thicker here, charged with energy that sent goosebumps racing across my skin. I stepped closer, captivated by the tree's presence. Suddenly, I heard a voice, a soft, haunting whisper that seemed to emanate from the tree itself. "Help me, please." My heart raced as I strained to listen. The voice was faint but unmistakable. "Is that you?" I called out, desperation lacing my tone. "Where are you?" The whispering intensified, swirling around me, filling my mind with images of despair and longing. I could feel a pull toward the tree, an invitation that both terrified and intrigued me. I approached cautiously, placing my hand on the rough bark. The moment I made contact, a surge of energy coursed through me, and I was flooded with visions, fragments of memories from those who had come before, trapped in the forest's embrace. I saw faces, people lost and wandering, their eyes filled with anguish. I felt their pain, their desperation to escape, to find peace. The realization hit me like a wave. The forest was a labyrinth of lost souls, ensnared by their own despair, unable to break free. "No," I shouted, pulling my hand away from the tree. "I won't let you take me too." But the whispers grew louder, thrumming in my ears. "Join us. Stay with us." I staggered back, feeling the weight of their longing pressing against me. The voices were intoxicating, promising solace in a place that thrived on despair. I knew I had to resist, to fight against the pull of the forest. I had come here with a purpose, and I couldn't allow myself to be consumed by the darkness. With renewed determination, I turned away from the tree, forcing myself to focus on the task at hand. I had to find the person who had entered this forest before me, someone who might still be clinging to hope. I couldn't let the forest claim another soul, and I wouldn't let despair win. As I retraced my steps, I felt the whispers trailing behind me, the forest protesting my departure. But I pressed on, fueled by the urgency of the mission ahead. I had entered Aokigahara seeking answers, but now I was determined to forge a path of salvation both for myself and for the lost soul that awaited rescue within its depths. The conflict within me had transformed into a fierce battle against the very darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. As I navigated through the dense underbrush, my mind raced with thoughts of the lost soul I was determined to find. The forest was a maze, twisting and turning in ways that felt almost intentional, as if it were designed to confuse and mislead. Every step I took was weighed down by the memories of the faces I had seen, the lost souls whose despair had permeated my consciousness like a dark fog. It was clear that Aokigahara was not merely a forest. It was a tapestry of stories woven together by pain, longing, and the search for release. I recalled the journal I had found at the abandoned campsite, its frantic scrawl echoing in my mind. The author had felt drawn deeper into the forest, compelled by a force they couldn't resist. What had happened to them? Had they succumbed to the whispers, or had they managed to escape? I felt a chill run down my spine as I considered the possibility that I might soon be in their shoes. Suddenly, I heard a rustling noise to my right. My heart raced as I turned, half expecting to see the figure I had glimpsed earlier. Instead, I found a small group of wild deer, their eyes wide and alert, watching me with curiosity. For a brief moment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. These creatures were a reminder of the beauty that still existed in the wilderness, even amidst the darkness of Aokigahara. But as they bounded away, I was reminded of my urgency. Time was running out. I pressed on, determined to find the person I had sensed in the clearing. But the forest had other plans. As I moved deeper, a thick fog began to roll in, obscuring my vision and muffling the sounds around me. The whispers grew louder, swirling through the mist like an intangible presence. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the sensation of being enveloped by the forest's embrace was overwhelming. Then, out of the fog, a figure appeared, a woman, her expression vacant, as if she were trapped in a dream. My heart leaped as I called out, "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" She turned slowly, her eyes devoid of recognition. I can't find my way." Her voice was a mere whisper. Laced with sorrow, I stepped closer, my instincts screaming that this was the person I had been searching for. "What's your name?" I asked gently, trying to connect with her. "Leela," she replied, her voice trembling. "I came here to escape, but now I can't leave." Her words struck a chord deep within me, and I felt a pang of empathy for her plight. "You're not alone, Leela. I'm here to help you. We can find a way out together." But as I reached for her hand, I could feel the forest tightening its grip around us. The fog thickened, and the whispers intensified, urging her to stay. "Join us," they sang, a mournful chorus that echoed off the trees. No. The complexities of Aokigahara were far from resolved, but in that moment, I knew we had taken a significant step toward overcoming the shadow that threatened to consume us both. Together, we had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the battle was far from over. The sunlight poured into the clearing, bathing us in a warm glow that felt almost surreal after the oppressive fog of Aokigahara. I could see shadows moving in the fog, figures emerging and retreating, their whispered promises mingling with Leela's fear. I felt the darkness surrounding us, and it took everything I had to push against it. "We are stronger than this," I declared, my voice ringing out like a beacon in the murky depths. In that moment, the shadows paused, a flicker of hesitation breaking through the chaos. Leela's expression shifted as she seemed to break free from the fog's grip. "You're right," she said, her voice firmer now. "I won't let them take me." But just as hope began to blossom, a low growl rumbled through the trees, reverberating through the earth beneath us. My heart sank as I realized we were not alone. The creature I had sensed before was closer now, its presence palpable. It thrived on despair, feeding off the very fear that had ensnared Leela. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing her hand and pulling her away from the clearing. We dashed through the fog, the forest closing in around us like a vice. The growls grew louder, echoing off the trees, and I felt the air thicken with tension. As we sprinted, I could feel the whispers clawing at my mind, trying to draw me back into the depths of Aokigara. "Stay with us," they hissed. "You belong here," but I was determined to resist. To break free from the shadowy grasp of the forest, Leela kept pace beside me, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "What do we do?" she cried, panic rising in her voice. "We keep moving," I said, my heart racing. "We'll find a way out. We have to believe we can escape this place." As we navigated the twisting paths, I felt the creature's presence stalking us, its growls reverberating through the air. I couldn't let it catch us not when we were so close to freedom. I remembered the journal I had found earlier, the desperate plea of its author. I had to channel that same determination and lead Leela to safety, but the complexities of the forest were beginning to unravel my resolve. The fog swirled around us, distorting my sense of direction. I fought against the urge to succumb to despair, but every rustle of leaves and creak of branches felt like a reminder of the darkness that surrounded us. Leela's presence grounded me, her determination igniting a fire within. "Look," she shouted suddenly, pointing ahead. "There's a light." I squinted through the haze, and sure enough, a faint glow flickered in the distance. Hope surged within me, propelling us forward. That must be an exit. We could make it. With newfound energy, we sprinted toward the light, the growls of the creature fading behind us. As we approached, the fog began to dissipate, revealing a clearing bathed in golden sunlight. My heart raced with anticipation as we stepped into the warmth, the light enveloping us like a protective embrace. But even as we stood on the threshold of freedom, I could feel the forest's lingering presence, a reminder that the darkness was always lurking just beyond the edge of the light. The complexities of Aokigara were far from resolved, but in that moment, I knew we had taken a significant step toward overcoming the shadow that threatened to consume us both. Together, we had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the battle was far from over. The sunlight poured into the clearing, bathing us in a warm glow that felt almost surreal after the oppressive fog of Aokigara. The moment we stepped into the light, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but the shadows of the forest loomed just beyond the edge, a constant reminder of the darkness we had narrowly escaped. Leela's eyes sparkled with newfound hope, yet I could see the flicker of fear still dancing behind them. "Is it really over?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might summon the darkness back. I glanced around, taking in the serene beauty of the clearing. "For now, yes. But we can't let our guard down. The forest will still try to reclaim us." We both knew that Aokigara was not just a collection of trees. It was a living, breathing entity that thrived on despair. It had nearly consumed us, and I could feel its pull even from within the clearing. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the present moment. We need to keep moving. We have to find a way out of this forest and back to safety. With renewed determination, we began to make our way through the clearing, following the sunlight as it filtered through the trees. However, even as we walked, I felt an unsettling awareness that the forest was watching us. The rustle of leaves seemed louder, the shadows deeper, as if the very essence of Aokigara was conspiring against us. Just then, I heard a chilling growl echo from behind us, reverberating against the trees. My heart sank. The creature was still pursuing us. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins. We sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, our breaths coming in gasps as we pushed ourselves to move faster. The growls grew louder, more menacing, and I could feel the ground trembling beneath us as the creature closed the distance. I glanced over my shoulder, my heart racing as I caught a glimpse of it, an enormous shadow, a mass of fur and teeth, barreling through the underbrush. "Keep going," I urged, grabbing Leela's hand and pulling her along as we raced toward the thicket at the far side of the clearing. The sunlight felt like a sanctuary, but I knew it wouldn't last. The forest was relentless in its pursuit, and we had to find a way to outsmart it. Suddenly, the path ahead began to twist and turn, and I realized we were entering a more densely wooded area. The trees closed in around us, their branches clawing at our clothes as we ran. A sense of panic surged within me. "Which way?" I shouted, trying to resist the overwhelming urge to turn back and face the creature. "Over there." Leela pointed toward a narrow gap between two towering trees. It looked like a small pathway, almost hidden from view. Without hesitation, we veered toward it, squeezing through the tight space as the growls echoed ever closer. Once through, we found ourselves in a small glade, the trees parting to reveal a shimmering pond at its center. The water glistened in the filtered sunlight, casting dancing reflections on the surface. For a moment, it felt like a tranquil oasis amidst the chaos, but I knew better than to let my guard down. "We can't stop here," I said, scanning the area for any signs of the creature. "We need to find a way to defend ourselves." Leela knelt by the pond, her fingers skimming across the water's surface. "What if we use the water to our advantage? Maybe it won't cross if it senses a barrier." I considered her words, feeling a flicker of hope. That could work. But we need to combine it with something else. I quickly scanned the glade, searching for anything we could use. My eyes fell on a cluster of rocks lining the edge of the pond. If we can gather these rocks and create a barrier, we might be able to hold it off long enough to escape. It stood at the edge of the pond, its massive form blocking the sunlight, casting a long shadow over us. I could feel the ground shake beneath us as it prowled closer, the scent of its breath heavy in the air. "Now," I shouted, grabbing a handful of dirt and tossing it into the water. "We need to create a barrier." Leela followed suit, flinging dirt and stones into the pond, the water splashing around us. It stood at the edge of the pond, its massive form blocking the sunlight, casting a long shadow over us. I could feel the ground shake beneath us as it prowled closer, the scent of its breath heavy in the air. "Now," I shouted, grabbing a handful of dirt and tossing it into the water. "We need to create a barrier." Leela followed suit, flinging dirt and stones into the pond, the water splashing around us. The creature watched, confusion flickering in its eyes as we worked frantically to build our makeshift defense. But I could see the fury building within it, the predator unwilling to be thwarted. As the barrier took shape, I felt a mixture of fear and determination. We can't let it break through. The creature lunged, its massive paws hitting the ground with a thunderous crash, sending vibrations rippling through the air. We stumbled back, hearts pounding, but the barrier held. The water shimmered, reflecting the sunlight as it splashed against the rocks, creating a natural wall, but I knew it wouldn't hold for long. "We need to find a way to distract it," I yelled, glancing around for anything we could use. My eyes landed on a large branch lying nearby. "Here, if we can throw this, we might be able to divert its attention." Without waiting for a response, I grabbed the branch and hurled it into the forest, watching as it landed with a heavy thud. The creature turned, its gaze fixated on the sound, momentarily distracted. "Go," I urged Leela, grabbing her hand once more as we sprinted around the pond. Using our makeshift barrier as cover, we moved quickly, weaving between the trees, adrenaline fueling our flight. The growls faded into the distance, but I knew we couldn't stop yet. The forest was still alive with danger, and we had to find our way out before it reclaimed us. With each step, the shadows seemed to thicken, the whispers growing louder as we pushed forward. But amid the chaos, I felt a spark of hope igniting within me. We had faced the creature together, and although the darkness of Aokigara still loomed, I knew we were stronger than the fears that sought to consume us. As we continued our escape, I realized that the turning point had not just been our confrontation with the creature, but our willingness to fight against the darkness and trust in each other. Are you both okay? We're fine, but we need to warn everyone. Leela insisted, her voice rising with desperation. We encountered something terrible. It's not just a myth. People are in danger. The rangers hesitated, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. You need to calm down, the lead ranger said, his tone firm but understanding. Take a breath and explain what happened as we recounted our harrowing experience. The weight of our words hung heavily in the air. She looked back toward the direction we had come, as if expecting the creature to burst from the trees at any moment. I glanced over my shoulder, my heart still racing. For now, yes, but we can't let our guard down. We have to keep moving. The weight of my words settled heavily on my chest. Though we had evaded the creature, I knew that Aokigara held many secrets, and we were far from safe. We continued down the path, the silence of the forest now punctuated by the sound of our footsteps on the leaf-strewn ground. I felt a mix of relief and lingering dread, my mind replaying the encounter over and over. The image of the creature, its eyes blazing with hunger, haunted me. We had narrowly escaped, but at what cost? As the trees began to thin, I could see a glimmer of light ahead, a sign of the outside world. Hope surged within me, but it was quickly tempered by the reality of our situation. We needed to find help and report what we had encountered, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only scratched the surface of Aokigahara's mysteries. What if we're not the only ones? Leela's voice broke through my thoughts, a tremor lacing her words. What if others have gone through the same thing? I nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in her words. There have been stories, rumors of people disappearing. We need to warn the others, make sure they know what they're up against. As we approached the edge of the forest, to the darkness of Aokigara. The moment we stepped out of the trees and into the clearing, the daylight felt blinding. We shielded our eyes, squinting against the brightness, but the sun's warmth was a welcome reprieve from the chill of the forest. Look, Leela pointed to a group of rangers gathered by the entrance of the forest, their faces a mixture of concern and relief. They're here. We rushed toward them, our hearts pounding with urgency. You have to help us, I shouted, breathless. There's a creature in the forest. It's hunting people. People have gone missing. The rangers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from relief to disbelief. What are you talking about? One of them asked, concern etched on his face. Are you both okay? We're fine, but we need to warn everyone. Leela insisted, her voice rising with desperation. We encountered something terrible. It's not just a myth. People are in danger. The rangers hesitated, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. You need to calm down, the lead ranger said, his tone firm but understanding. Take a breath and explain what happened. As we recounted our harrowing experience, the weight of our words hung heavily in the air. I saw the skepticism in their eyes begin to waver as they listened, our fear and urgency resonating with the stories they had heard from the locals. Why haven't we been notified about this? One ranger asked, frustration seeping into his voice. We need to alert the others. We can't let anyone else go into the forest without knowing the risks. I could see the resolve building among the group as they gathered their gear, preparing to head back into the forest. "We'll do a sweep and look for any signs of others," the lead ranger stated, determination replacing doubt. "We can't let fear hold us back. We need to confront whatever is lurking in there." As the rangers set off, Leela and I exchanged a glance, a mixture of relief and anxiety washing over us. We had shared our truth, and now it was up to them to act. But as they disappeared into the trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't seen the last of the creature Dot in the following hours. I found myself restless, unable to focus on anything but the forest. The sun began to dip low on the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the clearing. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest as the light began to fade. "What if they don't find anyone?" Leela asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned to her, my heart aching at the fear in her eyes. "They will. They have too." But as night fell, the shadows grew longer, and the forest took on a new life. The whispers that had haunted us in the woods seemed to echo in the distance, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay just beyond the edge of the clearing. I couldn't shake the feeling that Aokigara was not finished with us yet. The consequences of our encounter were far-reaching, and the forest still held its secrets tightly, waiting for the next moment to strike. We had escaped the creature, but as we stood at the edge of the forest, I knew we would never truly be free of its grasp. The experiences we had endured would shape us forever, leaving a mark on our souls that could never be erased. And as the darkness closed in around us, I realized that our fight was only just beginning. Dada, as the night deepened, the forest around us transformed into an alien landscape, the shadows stretching and shifting as if alive. Leela and I sat by the edge of the clearing, the flickering light from a small fire casting dancing shadows on our faces. The warmth was comforting, but the unease lingered, a constant reminder of the darkness that lay just beyond our sight. "I can't shake this feeling," Leela admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like the forest is waiting for something, or someone." There was a tremor in her voice that mirrored the fear I felt inside. I nodded, staring into the flames as if they held the answers to our questions. "I know. We've seen what it can do, but we can't let it control us. We have to confront our fears head-on, or we'll never be free of this place." The words felt heavy, but they also ignited a flicker of determination within me. I had spent years protecting the forest in my role as a ranger, and now I had to find a way to reclaim my power. Not just for myself, but for Leela and anyone else who might wander into the dark embrace of Aokigara. "We need a plan," I said, my voice steadying. "If we're going to confront whatever is haunting this forest, we need to understand it. We have to find out what happened to those who disappeared." Leela looked at me, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and admiration. "You're right. If we can uncover the truth, maybe we can help those who are still lost." In that moment, a sense of purpose washed over me. We were no longer victims of the forest. We were its defenders. Together, we could shine a light into the shadows and reclaim Aokigara from the grip of despair. With newfound resolve, we gathered our supplies, flashlights, bear spray, and the few provisions we had left. As we prepared to venture back into the forest, the weight of our mission settled on our shoulders. We were stepping into the unknown, but we were no longer alone. We had each other, and that was enough. As we walked along the path, the trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers. The sounds of the forest seemed amplified, and every rustle sent a jolt of adrenaline through my body. I could feel Leela's presence beside me, a silent reminder that we were in this together. After what felt like hours of navigating the twisting trails, we arrived at the clearing where I had first spotted the strange symbols carved into the trees. I remembered their significance, the names and dates etched into the bark, a testament to the lives that had touched this forest. "Look," Leela said, kneeling beside a particularly deep carving. "This one looks fresh." I knelt beside her, studying the markings. "We need to follow the trail. It might lead us to answers." We moved cautiously, following a series of markings that seemed to guide us deeper into the forest. The air grew heavier, charged with anticipation, as we ventured further from the safety of the clearing. I could feel the whispers returning, a haunting chorus that tugged at the edges of my mind, urging me to turn back, but I pushed forward, driven by a desire to uncover the truth. The forest had taken so much, and I refused to let it take any more. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a small, dilapidated structure, a cabin, obscured by overgrown vines and moss. My heart raced as I approached, the air thick with memories of those who had come before. "This must be it," I whispered, feeling an electric charge in the air. The door creaked open as we stepped inside, a cloud of dust swirling around us. The interior was dimly lit, remnants of a life once lived scattered throughout the room. Old photographs lined the walls, faces smiling back at us, frozen in time. But beneath the surface, I could sense the stories of those who had come here seeking solace, only to find despair. Leela picked up a tattered journal from a dusty table, its pages yellowed and fragile. "This might have answers," she said, her voice filled with hope. As she flipped through the pages, I scanned the room, the weight of history pressing heavily on my shoulders. The journal contained entries filled with desperation, recounting the author's struggles and the gradual descent into hopelessness. "They all felt drawn here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This forest, it feeds on their pain." Leela nodded, her eyes wide as she read the final entry aloud. "I can feel it in my bones, the forest pulling me deeper. I don't know if I'll come back. If you find this, know that I tried to escape, but the shadows are relentless." A shiver ran down my spine as the last words echoed in the cabin. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just a forest. It was a living entity that thrived on despair, drawing in those who were vulnerable. "We have to fight back," I said, my resolve hardening. "We can't let it claim any more souls. We need to bring this information back to the Rangers. They need to know what's happening here." With a renewed sense of purpose, we gathered the journal and prepared to leave the cabin. As we stepped outside, the air felt charged with energy, and I could sense that Aokigara was aware of our defiance. The whispers grew louder, an angry chorus that urged us to turn back, to abandon our quest, but we pressed on, our determination fueling our steps. The forest became a battleground, a space where we would confront our fears and reclaim our power. As we navigated the twisting paths, I felt a shift within me. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a guardian, a protector of those who had been lost. The journey ahead would not be easy, but I knew that Leela and I were stronger together. We would face the darkness of Aokigara, confront the shadows that lingered, and ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate as those before us. In that moment, I understood that overcoming fear was not just about survival. It was about growth, resilience, and the unwavering spirit to fight for what was right. We were ready to face whatever lay ahead, united in our purpose and emboldened by the knowledge we had gained. Aokigara would not break us. We would break the cycle of despair and reclaim the forest for those who had been lost. Together, we would shine a light into the darkness, illuminating the path to hope and healing. As we left the cabin behind, the weight of our discovery pressed heavily on my shoulders. The forest felt different now, charged with an angry energy that seemed to pulse beneath the ground. Leela walked beside me, her face set with determination, but I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. We were racing against time, and the stakes had never felt higher. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, breaking the heavy silence that surrounded us. "We need to head back to the ranger station," I replied, my mind racing. With the journal in hand, we can alert the others. They need to understand the threat Aokigahara poses not just to hikers, but to anyone who enters its depths. We can't let it claim any more souls. We need to bring this information back to the Rangers. They need to know what's happening here. With a renewed sense of purpose, we gathered the journal and prepared to leave the cabin. As we stepped outside, the air felt charged with energy, and I could sense that Aokigahara was aware of our defiance. The journal shows that this isn't just a myth, it's a reality. We can't let fear silence us. As we navigated the winding paths, I could see the remnants of the forest's beauty intertwined with its darkness. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground, but the shadows seemed to stretch longer, reaching for us with each passing moment. Suddenly, I heard a rustling in the underbrush, and my heart raced. "Stay close," I whispered to Leela. My senses heightened, the sound grew louder, and I spun around, anticipating the worst. But instead of a creature, I found a small group of hikers, their faces pale and drawn. "Help us," one of them shouted, desperation etched into his features. "We can't find our way back." My heart sank. "How long have you been lost?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Days. We thought we could make it through, but the forest, it keeps changing." Leela and I exchanged uneasy glances. "You have to follow us," I said urgently. "We're going to the ranger station. It's the safest place." As we turned to lead the frightened group, I could feel the forest's energy shift, as if it were aware of our plans. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind, urging me to turn back, to abandon this path. But I pushed the feelings aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Stay together," I instructed, my voice firm. "Don't stray from the path. We can't afford to lose anyone else." As we moved forward, I felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on me. Not only were Leela and I fighting for our lives, but now we were responsible for the safety of these hikers as well. I could sense the forest growing restless, its shadows swirling around us, eager to reclaim its lost souls. The tension in the air was palpable, and the whispers morphed into a cacophony of voices, each one urging us to turn back, to give in to the despair that Aokigahara thrived on. But I refused to succumb. I had come too far, and I had already faced the darkness that lurked within the forest. As we approached a more familiar path, I spotted the flickering lights of the ranger station in the distance. Hope surged within me. "We're almost there," I said, trying to encourage the group. "Just a little further." But then, out of nowhere, a shadow darted across our path, causing everyone to freeze in place. My heart raced as I turned to see the creature, a hulking mass of fur and rage emerging from the trees. Its glowing eyes locked onto us, and I felt the primal instinct to flee surge within me. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. The hikers hesitated for a moment, fear paralyzing them, but my shout seemed to snap them out of it. They turned and sprinted forward, Leela and I leading the way. As we raced toward the ranger station, I could feel the creature closing in behind us, its growls echoing ominously in the air. The whispers of the forest grew louder, a chaotic chorus urging us to submit to the darkness. But I clenched my jaw, determined not to be swayed. The station was now in sight, a beacon of safety amidst the encroaching shadows. "Keep going," I yelled, pushing myself harder as we closed the distance. The creature's breath was hot on my neck, and I could feel the ground trembling beneath us as it pursued us relentlessly. We burst through the door of the ranger station, slamming it shut behind us. Heart pounding, I turned to face the group of terrified hikers, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "We need to barricade the door," I shouted, urgency lacing my words. Leela began to move furniture against the entrance, and the other hikers quickly joined in, fear propelling their actions. I could hear the creature outside, scratching and growling, its frustration palpable. As we secured the door, I turned to the group, my heart racing. Listen, we need to prepare for whatever comes next. We have to stay together, stay focused. We can't let the darkness take us. The hikers exchanged fearful glances, but I could see a flicker of determination in their eyes. We were not just victims anymore. We were a united front, ready to confront the horrors that Aokigahara had to offer. As the creature continued to slam against the door, I felt a surge of adrenaline. We had come this far, and we would fight back. It was time to confront the darkness, to shine a light on the horrors that had haunted this forest for far too long. Together, we would break the cycle of despair and reclaim not just our lives, but the lives of those who had been lost within the shadows of Aokigahara. The door rattled violently against the frame as the creature slammed into it, its growls reverberating through the ranger station like thunder. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my heart racing in time with the pounding of the creature outside. We need to hold this door, I shouted, rallying the group. Everyone, push. We huddled together, our shoulders braced against the door, the wood creaking ominously as the creature continued its assault. The air was thick with fear, but I could also sense a shared determination among the group. We were not going to let this forest claim us, not today. Do you have any weapons? One of the hikers shouted from the back, his voice trembling with urgency. Only what's in the supply cabinet. I yelled back, Leela, can you grab the bear spray and the flares? She nodded, her expression resolute, and dashed toward the cabinet while we continued to brace against the door. The growling outside intensified, and I could hear the creature's heavy breathing, its frustration palpable. It was testing us, waiting for a moment of weakness. Stay strong, I urged the group, feeling the strain in my muscles. We can outlast it. Leela returned, bear spray in hand, and quickly handed it to me. What's the plan? She asked, her eyes wide with determination. We're going to need to create a distraction, I replied, my mind racing. When it breaks through, we need to hit it with everything we've got. The door bucked violently again, and I could feel splinters digging into my palms as I gripped the handle. Get ready. It's coming. With a final deafening crash, the door burst open, flinging us backward as the creature lunged into the room. It was larger than I had imagined, a hulking mass of muscle and fur, its eyes glowing like fiery coals. Fear coursed through me, but alongside it was a surge of adrenaline that ignited my resolve. Now I shouted, and as the creature turned to face us, I sprayed the bear spray directly into its eyes. The creature recoiled, letting out a chilling howl that echoed through the station. Run, I yelled, as the hikers scrambled to their feet, chaos erupting around us. Leela lit a flare and threw it toward the creature, the bright light illuminating the room and casting eerie shadows on the walls. The flare landed at the creature's feet, igniting in a burst of flame that sent it reeling back. Keep moving, I urged, my heart racing as we ran toward the back exit of the station. The creature, its vision obscured and fury ignited, charged after us, its growls echoing ominously in the confined space. We burst through the back door and into the open air, the forest sprawling out in front of us like a dark sea of shadows. The creature followed, its massive form crashing through the door, but we were already sprinting away, the adrenaline pushing us forward. Where do we go? One of the hikers shouted, panic in his voice. Follow the path, I yelled, pointing ahead. We have to make it to the trailhead. As we ran, the forest seemed to close in around us, the branches reaching out like grasping hands. I could hear the creature behind us, its growls echoing through the trees, relentless in its pursuit. Don't look back, Leela shouted, her voice a beacon of encouragement. Just keep moving. We raced down the path, our breath coming in ragged gasps as we navigated the uneven terrain. The darkness of the forest enveloped us, but I focused on the flickering light of the trailhead ahead, a promise of safety. Suddenly, the ground beneath us shifted, and I stumbled, nearly falling. Leela reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me back to my feet. "Stay focused," she urged, her eyes fierce with determination. The creature's growls grew louder, reverberating through the trees as it closed in. I could feel its presence, a dark shadow looming behind us, but I pushed the fear aside. "We can't let it catch us," I shouted, urging everyone to dig deep and find the strength to keep going. As we neared the trailhead, I could see the lights of the ranger station flickering in the distance, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. "We're almost there," I yelled, my heart pounding with each step. But then, out of nowhere, the creature lunged, its massive form crashing into one of the hikers, sending him sprawling to the ground. "No," I shouted, my heart sinking as I turned to see the chaos unfolding behind us. "Help him," Leela cried, but I could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Leela lit a flare and threw it toward the creature, the bright light illuminating the room and casting eerie shadows on the walls. The flare landed at the creature's feet, igniting in a burst of flame that sent it reeling back. "Keep moving," I urged, my heart racing as we ran toward the back exit of the station. The creature, its vision obscured and fury ignited, charged after us, its growls echoing ominously in the confined space. We burst through the back door and into the open air, the forest sprawling out in front of us like a dark sea of shadows. With every ounce of courage I could muster, I grabbed a branch from the ground and hurled it at the creature, shouting, "Hey, over here." The creature turned, its attention shifting from the hiker to me. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I ran, the forest blurring around me. I could hear the desperate cries of the hikers as they fled, but I knew I had to hold the creature's attention long enough for them to escape. I sprinted deeper into the forest, dodging trees and branches as I heard the creature crashing behind me. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless drumbeat urging me forward. "Come on," I yelled, my voice echoing through the trees. "You want me? Come and get me." The creature let out a deafening roar, a sound that sent chills down my spine, but I pushed on, determined to lure it away from the others. I could feel the darkness closing in, but I refused to give in. I had faced the shadows of Aokigara, and I was not about to let them win. As I stumbled upon a cliff's edge, I paused, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I turned to face the creature, its glowing eyes locked onto me, and in that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either succumb to the darkness or find a way to fight back with the forest swirling around me. I took a deep breath and prepared to confront the creature. I wouldn't go down without a fight. I would reclaim the light from the shadows of Aokigara once and for all. As the last echoes of the creature's growls faded into the distance, I stood at the edge of the cliff, heart pounding and breathless. The forest, once a dark labyrinth of despair, now felt different. I had faced the embodiment of fear, and though I was shaken, I had emerged stronger. The hikers had escaped, and I had drawn the creature away from them, buying them the time they needed to reach safety. The morning sun began to rise, casting golden light across Aokigara, illuminating the trees that had once seemed so menacing. It was as if the forest itself was awakening, shedding the darkness that had clung to it for so long. I could feel the energy shifting, the whispers that had haunted me now fading into a gentle rustle of leaves. In that moment, I realized that the forest's darkness was not just a physical entity. It was a manifestation of the pain and suffering that had taken root in its depths. I had faced it and survived, not just for myself, but for those who had been lost. I felt a renewed sense of purpose swell within me. I would return to the ranger station, not just to warn others, but to help heal the scars that this forest carried. As I made my way back, I felt a connection to the land deepen. I had come to Aokigara as a ranger, but I was leaving as a guardian. I would share what I had learned, ensuring that the stories of those who had suffered were heard and honored. The forest could reclaim its beauty, and I would be a part of that transformation. Weeks later, the ranger station buzzed with activity. The stories of Aokigara had spread, and I worked diligently with the local community to create awareness and safety protocols for those who ventured into the forest. We organized educational programs to share the legends and the importance of respecting the land, ensuring that no one else would fall victim to its haunting embrace. The forest began to heal as we learned to coexist with its mysteries, and I felt a sense of peace envelop me. If you ever find yourself wandering through the wilderness, remember the stories of those who came before. Respect the land and honor its secrets. Join us in spreading awareness about the importance of forest safety and mental health. Share your own experiences and help others understand the beauty and dangers that nature holds. Together, we can ensure that the whispers of the forest are not just echoes of despair, but stories of resilience and growth. Embrace the journey and let the light guide you through the shadows.